For centuries, we believed we knew the whole truth about the birth of Jesus Christ. The stories we've heard since childhood painted a specific picture: a humble birth in Bethlehem, shepherds, wise men, and a shining star. But what if I told you that Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, revealed information that completely contradicts everything we've been taught? Get ready, because what you're about to discover could forever transform your understanding of one of the most important events in human history. Edgar Cayce was no ordinary man. Born on March 18, 1877 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, this humble man possessed an extraordinary gift that defied all scientific explanations of the time. When he entered a deep trance state, Cayce accessed dimensions of knowledge that transcended time and space. His psychic readings, meticulously cataloged over 43 years, totaled more than 14,000 documents that still intrigue researchers worldwide. What made Cayce truly special was his uncanny accuracy. He diagnosed illnesses in people he had never met, prescribed treatments unknown to conventional medicine, and spoke about historical events in detail impossible to grasp through normal means. But among all his revelations, the information about Jesus Christ stands out as the most controversial and transformative. Cayce not only challenged the traditional narrative of Jesus' birth, he literally rewrote entire chapters of that story. During his trances, Cayce claimed to access the Akashic records, a kind of cosmic library where the entire history of humanity was recorded. It was through this access that he obtained detailed information about the life of Jesus that was never included in the canonical Gospels. He described mystical preparations that preceded the birth of the Messiah for centuries, revealed secrets about the lineage of Mary and Joseph, and exposed truths about Jesus' mission that the Church deliberately concealed. Here's something that will shake your convictions. According to Edgar Cayce, the birth of Jesus was not an isolated or miraculous event that happened out of nowhere. Rather, it was the result of centuries of meticulous preparation led by a secret order of wise men, known as the Essenes. These guardians of ancient knowledge worked for generations to create the perfect conditions that would allow the incarnation of a highly evolved soul. The Essenes were not simply an ordinary religious sect. They were spiritual scientists who understood profound laws of genetics, karma, and reincarnation that modern humanity is only beginning to rediscover. Cayce revealed that these masters initiated a program of spiritual and physical purification that involved dozens of carefully chosen families over multiple generations. The goal? To create a genetic and spiritual lineage pure enough to serve as a channel for cosmic consciousness. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was not chosen at random. According to Cayce's readings, she was prepared even before her birth. Her parents, Anna and Joachim, were devoted members of the Essene community and underwent rigorous purification rituals even before conceiving their daughter. When Mary was born, she was immediately consecrated to the temple, where she received intensive spiritual training that included meditation, fasting, study of sacred scriptures, and consciousness-raising practices. But the preparation went much further. Cayce described Mary as having undergone mystical initiations on Mount Carmel, where she had visions and direct experiences with higher planes of existence. She was not a naive young woman surprised by the Annunciation, as the traditional narrative suggests. She was a highly trained initiate who consciously accepted the mission to serve as a portal for the incarnation of Christ. Are you starting to realize how different this story is from everything you've been told? If these revelations are impacting you, like and share this video now so more people can awaken to these hidden truths. The figure of Joseph is perhaps one of the most distorted by the traditional narrative. The Church has always portrayed him as a simple carpenter, an ordinary man who passively accepted his role in history. But Edgar Cayce painted a radically different picture of this extraordinary man. Joseph was not just a carpenter, he was an Essene master of high initiatory degree, a man of profound spiritual knowledge who was chosen specifically to protect and guide Mary and Jesus. Cayce's revelations indicate that Joseph was significantly older than Mary when they were united, not out of social convention, but because he had already undergone decades of spiritual training. He was a widower and had children from a previous marriage, something the canonical Gospels briefly mention but which church tradition has tried to erase completely. Joseph was chosen by the Essene elders through a divine selection process that involved signs and visions. But here's the detail few know. Joseph also underwent mystical preparations before assuming his role. He wasn't simply informed that Mary was pregnant by divine agency. Cayce revealed that Joseph had his own visionary experiences, where angelic entities explained to him exactly what his mission would be and what was to come. He knew from the beginning that the child Mary was carrying was no ordinary child. Joseph's role was threefold. First, to provide physical protection for Mary and Jesus in a dangerous world. Second, to serve as an earthly father figure to the infant Jesus, teaching him practical skills and how to navigate the material world. Third, and perhaps most importantly, to continue Jesus' spiritual training in the Essenes mysteries. Joseph was not a background figure in Jesus' story. He was a fundamental pillar, without whom Christ's mission on earth could not have been fulfilled. Now we come to the most controversial point of all Edgar Cayce's revelations. Prepare your heart, because this goes against everything you've been taught since childhood. According to Cayce's psychic readings, Jesus was not born in Bethlehem, at least not in the manner and location described in the Gospels. The narrative of a humble manger surrounded by animals, while beautiful and touching, was a later construction created to fulfill Old Testament prophecies. Cayce revealed that Jesus' birth did occur in a cave, yes, but not in Bethlehem of Judea. The site was a sacred cave that the Essenes had prepared specifically for this cosmic event. This cave was located near the Essenes community on Mount Carmel, a place of profound spiritual power where sacred rituals had been performed for centuries. The cave was not chosen by chance or necessity, but because it represented a portal between dimensions, a place where the veil between the physical and the spiritual was naturally thinner. The date of birth is also different from what we traditionally celebrate. Cayce indicated that Jesus was born in March, not December. The date of December 25th was established centuries later by the Roman Church to coincide with pagan winter solstice festivals, facilitating the conversion of non-Christian populations. The actual birth occurred during spring, a time of renewal and new beginnings, symbolically more appropriate for the arrival of a spiritual light into the world. Before we continue, if you're enjoying our content and can support our work and be part of our exclusive community, become a channel member. Besides helping us continue bringing you incredible content, you'll have access to special benefits. Click the button, become a member, and join us. Even more surprising is the revelation that the birth was witnessed not by ordinary shepherds, but by Essenes masters who had been prepared for this moment through visions and prophecies. They were not guided by a celestial star visible in the physical sky, but by a spiritual star, a manifestation of light in higher dimensions that only clairvoyant eyes could perceive. The so-called Magi were, in fact, initiates of ancient mysteries from Persia, Egypt, and India, who recognized through their own systems of esoteric knowledge that something monumentally important was happening. This is where Edgar Cayce's revelations become truly transcendental and completely challenge traditional doctrine. Cayce taught that the soul that incarnated as Jesus was no ordinary soul making its first or second visit to Earth. It was an entity that had evolved through multiple incarnations over thousands of years, always serving humanity, always seeking to raise the collective consciousness. In Cayce's readings, this soul had previously incarnated as important historical figures. It was Adam, the first complete human being. It was Enoch, who walked with God and never saw death. It was Melchizedek, the mysterious priest-king without a genealogy who blessed Abraham. It was Joseph of Egypt, who saved his people from famine. Each incarnation was a preparation, an evolutionary step that would culminate in the final incarnation as Jesus, the Christ. But Cayce went further and revealed something even more extraordinary. The Christ consciousness that inhabited Jesus did not fully enter at the moment of birth. The baby born in that sacred cave was a highly evolved soul, yes, but the full manifestation of the Christ, the universal cosmic consciousness, was only fully integrated during Jesus' baptism by John the Baptist in the Jordan River, when Jesus was approximately 30 years old. This concept explains Jesus' silent years, those mysterious 18 years between his youth and the beginning of his public ministry, about which the Gospels say nothing. Cayce revealed that during this period, Jesus traveled extensively, studying in the temples of Egypt, India, Persia, and even Tibet. He was not only learning, he was gradually integrating ever higher levels of cosmic consciousness into his human vessel, preparing for the moment when full Christ consciousness could manifest through him. The Church taught for centuries that Jesus came to earth solely to die for our sins, to be a sacrifice that would appease an angry God. But Edgar Cayce presented a radically different and infinitely more empowering vision of Jesus' mission. Christ did not come to die for us. He came to show us the way, to demonstrate the divine potential that lies within every human being. According to Cayce, Jesus' primary purpose was to be a living example of what humanity can become. Every miracle he performed, every healing, every manifestation of power over matter, was not meant to prove his unique divinity, separate from us, but to demonstrate that these same powers are latent within every human soul. When Jesus said, "These things that I do, you will do also, and even greater things than these," he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was revealing a literal truth about our potential. Jesus' incarnation also served to anchor a new frequency of consciousness on Earth, a new evolutionary possibility for all humanity. Before Jesus, the concept that God and humankind could be one was considered blasphemy. Jesus came to dissolve this illusory separation, to demonstrate that the divine is not distant in some unreachable heaven, but is in the heart of each person, waiting to be awakened. Pause for a moment and reflect. How would your life change if you truly believed you had the same divine potential that Jesus demonstrated? Like these revelations, if they're transforming your perspective, and share them so others can awaken too. One of Edgar Cayce's most disturbing revelations concerns teachings that Jesus actually imparted, but which were systematically removed, distorted, or hidden by the institutional church. Cayce had access through the Akashic records to the original teachings Jesus gave to his closest disciples, teachings that were far more mystical and esoteric than anything preserved in the canonical Gospels. Jesus taught about reincarnation, about the laws of cause and effect that govern spiritual evolution through multiple lives. He explained to his disciples that each soul is on a journey back to the full awareness of its divine nature, and that this does not happen in a single life, but through countless experiences in different bodies and circumstances. When the disciples asked who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind, they were revealing that the concept of reincarnation was known and accepted at that time. Jesus also taught practical techniques of meditation, visualization, and energy work that allowed his disciples to access altered states of consciousness and perform healings. He explained the multidimensional nature of the human being, with its physical, etheric, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. He demonstrated how to raise Kundalini energy through the chakras, although he used different terminology for these concepts. Cayce revealed that Jesus spent much time teaching about what we now call the law of attraction, about how our thoughts and emotions create our reality. He taught that the kingdom of heaven is not a physical place we go after death, but a state of consciousness that can be accessed here and now. The kingdom of God is within you was not a poetic phrase. It was a literal instruction on where to direct our attention and pursuit. The question that naturally arises is, if these were Jesus' true teachings, why were they suppressed? Edgar Cayce was very clear on this. The answer is simultaneously simple and deeply disturbing. Power and control. Teachings that empower the individual, that claim each person has direct access to the divine without the need for intermediaries, are extremely dangerous for institutions that base their power precisely on being such intermediaries. In the first 3 centuries after Jesus' death, dozens of different Christian groups existed, each with their own gospels and interpretations of the Master's teachings. Some of these groups, especially the Gnostics, preserved the deepest mystical teachings. They taught that salvation comes through direct knowledge, gnosis, of the divine within oneself, not through external dogma or rituals. But when Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire in the 4th century, everything changed. Councils were convened, most notably the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where men with political agendas decided which teachings would be considered orthodox and which would be declared heretical. Gospels were burned, teachers were persecuted, and a domesticated and politically expedient version of Christianity was imposed. The teachings on reincarnation were officially anathematized at the Council of Constantinople in 553 AD. Why? Because if people believed they would have multiple lives to evolve spiritually, they would not fear eternal damnation as much, and a church that cannot threaten hell loses much of its power of control. Teachings about the inner divinity of each person were replaced by the doctrine that we are unworthy sinners who depend entirely on the grace dispensed through the Church's sacraments. Cayce clearly saw how Jesus' original message, which was liberating and empowering, was transformed into a religion of submission and guilt. This doesn't mean that all people within the church institution were malicious. Many were and are sincere seekers of truth. But power structures inevitably corrupt the purest spiritual teachings, molding them to serve their own needs for perpetuation. One of Edgar Cayce's most extraordinary revelations about Jesus goes beyond anything taught by any traditional religion. Cayce revealed that Christ consciousness is not limited to planet Earth, or even just to the human species. The Christ is a universal consciousness that exists throughout the cosmos in all dimensions, in all forms of conscious life. The incarnation of Jesus was not only an important event for Earth's humanity, but a cosmic one that reverberated across multiple dimensions and realities. When Jesus achieved his resurrection, when he demonstrated total mastery over matter and death, he not only opened a path for humanity but also raised the vibratory frequency of the entire planet and influenced the evolution of consciousness on other planes of existence. Cayce described hierarchies of evolved beings in higher dimensions who closely followed Jesus' mission on Earth. For these beings, what Jesus accomplished, integrating full divine consciousness into a dense physical body on a planet of free will and a strong polarity between light and dark, was considered a remarkable achievement even by cosmic standards. Even more fascinating is the revelation that Jesus' work did not end with his ascension. Cayce taught that the Christ consciousness continues to work with humanity, not externally as a distant God, but internally, in the heart and consciousness of each person who opens to this frequency. Jesus as a historical figure fulfilled his mission, but the Christ as a universal principle is eternally available and active. Edgar Cayce also made intriguing revelations about what is traditionally called the second coming of Christ. But his interpretation was radically different from the apocalyptic narrative promoted by most religions. Cayce taught that Christ's return would not be an external event where a figure would literally descend from the clouds to judge humanity. The true return of Christ, according to Cayce, is the awakening of the Christ consciousness within every human being. It is an internal event of consciousness transformation that will occur gradually as more and more people awaken to their true divine nature. It will not be one person returning, but the Christ consciousness manifesting through thousands, then millions, and eventually billions of people who choose to embody these principles. Cayce predicted that we have entered an era of great planetary transformation, where old structures based on fear, control, and separation will inevitably collapse, making way for new forms of social organization based on love, cooperation, and recognition of our fundamental unity. This transformation would be accompanied by immense challenges, earthly changes, and social upheaval, but the ultimate result would be the birth of a new human consciousness. He also indicated that the era we are now entering, the Age of Aquarius, is particularly conducive to this mass awakening. The cosmic energies flooding the planet during this transition facilitate access to higher states of consciousness and accelerate the evolutionary process of souls ready to take the next step. So what should we do with all this disturbing and transformative information that Edgar Cayce revealed about Jesus? It's not enough to simply know these truths intellectually. They need to be lived, experienced, and incorporated into our personal journey. Cayce always emphasized that spiritual knowledge without practical application is useless. The first step is to recognize that you are not an unworthy sinner waiting for external salvation, but a divine being in the process of awakening. This is not arrogance. It is the recognition of the fundamental truth of your nature. The same potential that Jesus demonstrated exists within you, dormant perhaps, certainly undeveloped, but definitely present. Begin each day with the affirmation of this truth, allowing it to gradually transform your self-image. The second step is to take full responsibility for your spiritual journey. No church, no priest, no guru can do the work for you. You have direct access to the divine through meditation, through contemplative prayer, through inner silence. Cultivate this direct relationship with the sacred within you. Don't outsource your spirituality to others. The third step is to apply Jesus' true teachings in your daily life. Unconditional love, radical forgiveness, compassionate service, and recognizing the unity of all life. These aren't just nice ideas. They're powerful spiritual practices that literally transform your vibration and consciousness when applied consistently. Finally, share these truths with others, but with wisdom and discernment. Not everyone is ready to hear that everything they were taught was wrong or incomplete. Respect each person's journey, but for those who have ears to hear, be a bearer of light, a messenger of the truths Edgar Cayce so courageously brought to light. Edgar Cayce's revelations about the birth and mission of Jesus Christ are not merely corrected historical information. They represent an invitation to a profound transformation of consciousness, a call to awaken from the spiritual slumber in which humanity has been trapped for millennia. The true story of Jesus does not diminish his importance, but rather amplifies it in ways that traditional doctrine has never allowed us to comprehend. He did not come to be worshipped as a distant and unattainable God, but to show us the way back to our own forgotten divinity. If this message touches your heart and inspires new insights into your life, know that every video we create here is made with great care and dedication. Our purpose is to spread spiritual knowledge, help more people awaken to their true essence, and strengthen this community of truth seekers. If this content made a difference to you, imagine how many souls can be enlightened with this same message. Here on YouTube, there is a simple and special way to support us, through the button. Thanks a lot. This is a way to show that this content has had a real impact on your life and to help us continue producing quality materials, bringing knowledge and inspiration to those who need it most. Every contribution, no matter how small, is a gesture of gratitude and love, and makes all the difference so we can move forward with this mission. But regardless of anything, the most important thing is your presence here. Your engagement, comments, and support are the energy that keeps this community alive and growing. If you can contribute, we'll receive it with open hearts and immense gratitude. If you can't, your positive vibes and participation are already a great gift. Together we are spreading more light, more love, and more knowledge to the world. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. May your journey be filled with evolution, learning, and connection with the divine. Each disturbing revelation I shared in this video is a piece of a larger puzzle that, when fully assembled, paints a radically different picture not only of Jesus, but of who we truly are and who we can become. The lies were not necessarily told out of malice, but out of fear, a desire for control, and a lack of understanding of the magnitude of what Jesus was really teaching. Now, in this era of great transition, these hidden truths are emerging because humanity is finally ready to receive and apply them. The invitation is before you now. Will you continue to accept the comfortable but limiting narratives you've been taught? Or will you have the courage to explore the deeper and more challenging truths Edgar Cayce revealed? The choice, as always, is yours. But know that once you see the truth, you can no longer pretend you haven't seen it. Your journey of awakening has already begun, and as Jesus himself taught, the truth will always set us free, no matter how disturbing that truth may initially be.